If you just work hard, get good at what you do, you're asking for punishment. In today's world, if you don't put the money God gives you to work, you're left watching it slowly disappear, and that's called squandering. In this episode, we'll explore why simply earning money isn't enough anymore, and why even people who are doing everything right still feel like they're falling behind. I'll share some thoughts that have shaped my perspective on investing over the past 10 years, along with a simple 5-step process that has helped me define goals, pick an investment vehicle, and take action with confidence. This may not work for you. I'm just sharing the thoughts that have helped me along my investment journey. And the reason why this is top of mind for me today is because a Christian business owner I know reached out recently. Super sharp guy, he's been building his business for years, getting really good at what he does, and he's got a great team around him. He's put process in place, all these things, right? He's got to the point now where he's got the business, the income, the house, the family. He's doing everything right. But one day he said something to me, it got me thinking. He's like, Brent, I thought that if I just worked hard, got really good at what I do, and built a business serving others that produced income, I'd be set. But turns out that that's just the starting line. Now I have to figure out what to do with the money just to keep it from evaporating. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't being dramatic. He did the research, right? Inflation, government spending, money supply, asset prices, all these things. He realized earning more money isn't the full picture. It's really only the first step to financial stewardship. And the crazy part is, this is a guy who built a business. You know the stats, 95% of businesses fail within 10 years, 95%. So he beat the odds, built a great business, but somehow, even though he was winning, he still felt like he was losing. It's this 21st century treadmill. He's gotten really good at making income, but he's essentially stuck in the same place, running hard, going nowhere. Every day he puts in the work, but he never really seems to get any further ahead. What else did he say? Oh yeah, he's like, every dollar I earn is worth less by the time I figure out what to do with it. I need to make investment moves just to keep what I've earned. But this isn't what I'm good at. I'm not an investor by trade. It's not that he wanted to get rich or live life on his own terms. He's not ruled by money. He's ruled by Christ. He just wants to faithfully and diligently steward what God has entrusted to him. And he's rather annoyed by this reality that his efforts are constantly being undermined by this elusive force of monetary evaporation, as he calls it. And honestly, that's what stuck with me, because he's right. A good steward has a responsibility to work, yes, but also a responsibility to manage well what has been worked for, so that it isn't simply evaporated away. He realized this, but what can he do? Right? He's like, this isn't what I'm good at. I'm not an investor by trade. It's so true. How many of us were ever taught to think like an investor? I was never taught to think like an investor. I think I speak for most of us. You're simply trained to work hard, get good grades, get a good job, maybe build a business. Don't spend more than you earn. Just maybe put a little away in some mutual funds. That's it. You'll be set. The rest will figure itself out, just like Canada's budget. But that's not reality, at least not in today's world, because the money you earn in today's economy constantly loses value. As more money is lent into existence, the value of the money you work so hard for slowly disappears. It's a full-time job just to learn how inflation works. Honestly, the folks who produce the inflation don't even know how it works. And it's another full-time job to figure out how to respond to inflation. But just because it is difficult, that doesn't change the fact that the stewardly thing to do includes earning money and protecting the value of what you earn. That essentially means becoming an investor, even if it's not your background. Now, the Christian business owner I mentioned, He already has money set aside to invest, which is probably why he's feeling the pain of it losing value. But if you're just starting out, this applies the same. You're facing an uphill battle. And if you don't learn how to protect the value of what you earn, you'll likely hit the same dead end in 25 years. That conversation got me thinking. So the first thing that comes to mind is understand what you're up against. Learn how the system works. Most people lose because they underestimate what they're up against and they overestimate their own preparation. What did you learn about money in school? You have to educate yourself. They don't really teach about money and investing in school. It's pretty smart of them. I think there might even be a small fear that if third graders saw a picture of like a bucket with a hole in it called inflation, they'll be able to point out the flaw in the system. Maybe a good rule of thumb is that if the government doesn't want you to know about something, you should probably read up on it yourself. Read books, talk to investors, learn from other people's mistakes. Every day you leave your money idle, not doing anything, inflation is slowly stealing it from you, quietly, legally, and with your permission. So understand what you're up against. Number 2, take stock of what you have. These are just some thoughts I had, but you can't invest something you don't have. So think through, realize, and account for what you already have or have access to, because some people might say, oh, I could just use other people's money to invest. That's true as well. The guy I mentioned earlier, his situation was pretty straightforward. His business makes profit. He's got some extra cash laying around. He didn't want it evaporating away. Simple enough. But for a lot of people, taking stock of what you've got is maybe not so obvious. Sometimes God's blessings are hiding in plain sight. If you're like me, you probably got some sort of mental tally going on. I got this over here, some of that over there. It's not very organized. But let's just try brainstorm a bit. So maybe you don't have extra cash laying around, but you have been paying down your mortgage for years. What you might have is a significant amount of home equity sitting there. Yeah, but I don't want to touch that. That's fine. We're just brainstorming what you have right now. Maybe you're a dink. Double income, no kids. You've got really strong income because 2 spouses are working and you don't have kids yet, which means you can live in a tiny, cheap apartment, save a lot of money. This time in your life is like peak borrowing power time. It could be a huge opportunity for you. Or maybe you have valuable relationships with people who trust you, social capital. Right? Trust and goodwill from others is not free. It takes time to build trust. So maybe you have someone in your life who trusts you, is willing to help you, either, funding a deal, qualifying for financing, wise advice, something like that. Maybe you have underperforming investments. I'm guilty of this. Right? Funds just sitting around in something that are not optimized. For some reason, I keep thinking about my kids' RESPs. Yeah. University education is going up in price, but for some reason, I feel like the value of it is trending down. Anyways, let's keep brainstorming. Maybe you have some mad skills you can leverage. Maybe you're blessed with an attitude of self-sacrifice and commitment. You're willing to sacrifice present enjoyment for future reward. Okay? Not everyone has that. Hence the existence of this buy now, pay later economy. Maybe you can sacrifice so much that you're comfortable making a multi-generational investment where you will never even see the reward in your lifetime. We don't come across that attitude very much these days. But that's the attitude that, made all this beautiful art and music and architecture centuries ago. All we got now is a bunch of me first pop stars living it up. Here's the point. Take stock of everything you've been entrusted with. Income, cash, home equity, credit, skills, tools, time, even mindset and community. The idea here is to account for all that you have, right? Not just some. It may be a good mindset to consider when you're taking stock of everything is, where are the idle resources? Where are the things that God has given me that I'm burying in the sand or not using to their full potential? If there's one thing you know about today's economic reality is letting money sit idle is asking for punishment. That doesn't mean 100% of your money should be invested at all times. No. But it does mean that 100% of your money and resources should be accounted for. You are a steward. You can't opt out of being a steward. That means you should know where things are at, right? We're accountable for it all. If you've owned your home for a long time, chances are you're sitting on a pile of potential that could be put to use. That doesn't mean paying off your mortgage is wrong. If being debt-free gives you the ability to serve others better, that's great. But let's not forget, in today's system, you're actually rewarded for taking on debt if you buy income-producing assets. I know, it sounds backwards, but it's true. It's wise to have emergency reserves, but how much is wise? 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? That's a question worth wrestling with. Because anything beyond, your minimum could be working for you, not just sitting in savings account, losing value to inflation. God doesn't give us things to forget about. He gives us resources, financial or otherwise, so that we can steward them well and give him glory. How can we be truly thankful for something that we've neglected or overlooked? So here's a challenge, right? Take an honest inventory of everything God's entrusted to you. Then ask yourself, am I managing this with purpose and intention? Or am I just coasting? What does Luke say, right? One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. If you already got a plan, work it out. If you don't, then maybe work to keep your options open, but do it on purpose, with intention. All right, so we got understand what you're up against, take stock of what you have. Next thought, know where you want to go and why. Where are you trying to go and why do you want to get there? Because everything else, how you invest, what you invest in, who you invest with, how much risk you take, how much time you commit, all that depends on that answer. Ask yourself, how far do I want to go? Where do I want to end up? How quickly do I want to get there? How much risk am I okay with? How do I feel about debt? What am I really looking to accomplish? Specifically on the real estate front, do you want to build long-term passive income, or are you looking for a huge payout at the end? Do you want to get your kids involved in real estate? All right, there's value to that. Do you want to do some of the work yourself or stay totally hands-off? Once you know where you're headed and why, then you can find the right investment vehicle to take you there. And there's a lot of different vehicles, right? Real estate is just one of them. So number 4, pick a vehicle and get driving. This is where the rubber really hits the road. And that's a shout out to Mark, who's not here right now. This part's a little bit more practical. So if you're only planning to go 1 block, it doesn't really make sense to hop in your car. In fact, you're better served just walking and getting the exercise. Probably going to be better for you. This way you don't have to wait at stoplights. You don't have to find parking when you get there. The same thing, if you're only investing for a year or 2, maybe consider something more stable, more liquid. You can get out easily. You don't take a taxi to go 1 block. That just adds unnecessary complexity. Just walk. But if you're trying to go 1,000 kilometers, well, if that's your goal, walking's not going to cut it. All right? That's maybe where a car makes sense. Sometimes you're going to go faster on the highway. Sometimes you're going to get stuck in traffic. But even with those ups and downs, the car's still going to get you there much faster than walking. Plus, you're a lot less likely to get run over by a bus, also known as inflation. And yes, cars do come with risk. People sometimes crash when they go too fast. They overestimate their skills and they ignore the warning signs. Same goes for investing, right? The farther and faster you want to go, the more intentional you need to be with the plan. Right? Remember that if you hop in a car and drive in the wrong direction, because you're going farther and faster, you can easily end up way off track. So here's another challenge. Don't just invest because someone else is doing it. Don't get into a vehicle until you know where you're going and why, right? Otherwise, you're going to drive forever in the wrong direction. And don't forget to ask, what am I willing to sacrifice or commit? Time, money, energy to actually get there. All right, I'm ready to go. Well, let's say we're sitting across the table and you've got $300,000 set aside to invest. Now, wouldn't that be great? You're hoping to achieve strong cash flow, maybe build some equity over the next 15 years. Well, the first thing I'd say is don't just sit on it and hope something comes along. Let's be intentional. We need to figure out the right vehicle. In other words, what kind of opportunities line up with your goals, your timeline, how involved you want to be, because not every investment is for every person. And just because something looks good on paper doesn't mean it fits you. So once that's clear, then we've got to get ready. That means take action now, before any opportunity shows up. Maybe it's restructuring your finances, lining up capital, preparing for lending, even building the right relationships before the deal comes along. Nothing stings more. Don't ask me how I know. Nothing stings more than seeing the right opportunity come up and not being ready to move. It's like, oh, that was the one. There's that old saying, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Now, I don't believe in luck, but I do believe God brings the opportunities, and it's on us to be prepared. If we're not stewarding what's already in our hands, why would he entrust us with more? Now let's talk real estate for a second. It's not like stocks where you could just buy more or less and kind of ladder up very easily. When real estate, you're working within these like price tiers, right? So you've got 300,000 to invest. Well, that unlocks a very different set of opportunities than someone with, let's say, 50 or 100,000, or someone who's ready to deploy like a couple million. So whatever your number is, the key is to know what level that unlocks and how to prepare for it so that you're ready to act when something comes up. And these decisions need to be driven by data, by logic, discipline, not emotion, right? Making an offer on an investment property is not like buying your forever home. It's a business move. So your numbers need to be tight and your thinking needs to be clear. That's something I wish more young people understood. And maybe it's something that parents should talk about with their kids as they're getting ready to buy their first place. It's not going to be your forever house, but it is your first major investment. So it's either going to be a step that sets you up or one that sets you back. So the challenge is this: don't wait until a deal shows up to get your ducks in a row. Educate yourself, set things up, build some margin, and get ready to move with clarity and confidence when the time is right. And here's the part I wrestle with the most. Maybe you do too. This is number 5. So know when you've arrived. That's not chasing more just for the sake of more. It's so hard because contentment doesn't rise naturally, especially in a world that's constantly pushing us to want the next thing. But at every stage, we need to be able to say, I have what I need. I'm free to steward what God's given me for his glory, free to give, free to serve. In Christ, I can live with clear purpose and full satisfaction no matter how much money I have, small or great. We weren't created to chase money, but we are called to steward it wisely, intentionally, and with open hands. But there's a danger on the other side too. Sometimes in our pursuit of contentment, we confuse it with comfort and we stop pressing forward. We think, I'm good, I've arrived. But true contentment isn't passive. It frees us not to sit back, but to press on, to stay engaged, to keep asking, what has God entrusted to me? How can I put it to work for his purposes? Remember the servant in the parable of the talents who neglected his gift? He played it safe. He was rebuked eternally. Stewardship isn't about hoarding or coasting or even giving a little here and there. It's about using everything we've been given to grow, serve, add value, and build God's kingdom. Too often I find myself thinking, this is my money, and I want it to work for me. But the real question I need to be asking is, how can I use all this to advance His kingdom, not mine? So those are just some thoughts. If you feel like you're earning a good income, but not getting ahead, you're not crazy. That frustration is real. And the call to stewardship in today's world isn't passive. It takes action, right? Understand what you're up against. Take stock of what you have. Know where you want to go and why. Pick a vehicle, get driving, and know when you've arrived. It starts with educating yourself, then finding a sound way to preserve what you've earned, then taking steps to invest it wisely, not to build your own empire, but to serve, grow, and give generously, because good stewardship isn't just about what we earn, it's about how we use it. Thanks for listening. If something here sparked a thought or challenged you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. DM me anytime or email, whatever works. You'll find all the contact info below. Have a great week. Until next time, steward your wealth wisely.